Thanks to our second son being gone, we have the chance to meet like this again." The words I heard from my room were far from appropriate for a real parent, my husband. I could feel my heart growing cold at the crude laughter intermingled in the conversation between my husband and our eldest son's wife. Even a normally mild-mannered eldest son, who was watching the screen next to me, was trembling quietly in anger. "When they come back, we need to have a proper discussion." Yes, I would like to hear their excuses. As relatives were gathering, it was rather convenient that they had prepared incontrovertible evidence against themselves. By this point, everyone present was on my and our eldest son's side. Together with their various relatives, we were eagerly awaiting the return of the two who were soon to be on the hot seat. My name is Catherine. I am turning 64 this year. I raised two sons and thought I had built a very ordinary family. I had only recently learned that such common happiness could easily crumble. I was in deep grief after losing my second son in a car accident. Why did Mike have to be in an accident? How long are you going to keep moaning about what's already happened? Despite our son leaving this world due to an unexpected accident, my husband threw such cold words at me. Seeing my husband without a single tear, even though the funeral was coming up, I felt my heart grow colder. At the signal from our eldest son coming to pick us up, I heard a car horn from outside. I put the pet cat in the cage and headed towards the entrance. "I never thought Mike would leave us so soon." "You too, Tyler. You're both a miserable lot, father and son." "Isn't it natural? Rather, why do you seem so unfazed?" "You're planning to send Mike off with a smile, aren't you, father-in-law?" "That's right. That's exactly what I mean." Even in the car, my husband's attitude remained unchanged, laughing out loud. Our eldest son's wife also looked at him, smiling. Even in normal times, these two often say things that are quite provocative without any hesitation. Normally, I would let it slide since I understood their personalities from long-term association, but today I couldn't. It was unbearable to think of the feelings of our eldest son, who was fond of his younger brother, hearing such heartless words from his own father and even his wife. I slapped my husband's knee, who was sitting next to me, to point it out. "Enough. Despite the family tragedy, I can't believe you can laugh like that." "Ouch. Are you telling me to put on a face that looks like it's about to grow mold?" "I'm asking you to have some decency. You're not a child. Don't speak so loud at the funeral." Yeah. You're always a nagging wife, no matter how old you get." Not being able to resist answering back to my words, my husband grumbled childishly, appearing irritated. Feeling the tension in the car atmosphere, I sighed, looking out of the window, thinking it was pointless to talk any further. I understood, as my husband said, that it's not necessarily good to cry on more. That's why I believed what we could do was simply to send off our second son quietly, hoping for his peaceful rest. Despite my only wish being that, these two wouldn't even allow it, and were about to cause an unthinkable incident. I greeted my relatives whom I hadn't seen for a while at the venue, chatting about old times with those who had loved my second son and made the effort. To come from afar, tears naturally flowed again. "This whole situation is really uncomfortable." "Mike was such a sweet and good boy. It feels like he just became an adult." "Thank you for your concern." Every time our second son's name was mentioned, I bowed deeply and expressed my gratitude. Ignoring me, my husband seemed unrepentant even about his attitude in the car, and was chatting loudly about golf and other fun things with a relative he hadn't seen in a while. "How about it? Would you like to go out and play together next time?" "Kyle, isn't today your son's funeral?" "I'm not saying we should go out today, right? That would be downright bad luck." "How many times do I have to tell you to stop before you're satisfied?" In my quiet but firm voice, I scolded my husband, who only seemed to think about himself. It felt like I was reprimanding an unruly child. Seemingly irritated at being admonished yet again, my husband sullenly showed his disgruntlement, dismissively gesturing with one hand. I questioned if he really understood what day it was today. Was my husband's attitude evoking such doubt? I wondered when things had gotten to this point, a crease forming between my brows. Had he gone insane from the shock of our second son's departure from this world? Speaking of Jessica, has been doing the same thing. She compares me and Dad every time we talk at home. Is that so? My first son's words sent a shiver of unease through my heart. I wanted to believe that there was some reason behind my husband's behavior, perhaps stubbornness from growing older, but Tyler's disheartening words caused me to involuntarily glance at the two of them. Despite being quieter than before, they seemed cheerful, continuously grinning as they chatted. Seeing this, I shook my head. You're right, these do seem too close. Right, but Dad's 65. He wouldn't get any weird ideas about his son's wife. Yes, you're right. With their age gap, he wouldn't do something so disgraceful. As we shared a small, half-hearted laugh, we continued our conversation. Perhaps we were both silently hoping, reassuring each other that it was that case. Regardless of our anxieties, the pair continued to chat away happily. When I went to the restroom during the funeral, I saw my husband headed toward the exit. Following him, I found Jessica by his side, about to step outside. Hey, where are you two going? Huh? Oh, it's you. Jessica said she wasn't feeling well, so I thought I'd let her get some fresh air. I see. Are you okay, Jessica? Yes, I think I'll be okay if I just rest a bit. After watching the pair go outside, I returned to my seat and whispered to Tyler. He seemed unaware of my ill health and was visibly surprised when he learned they had gone outside. Oh, so that's why he borrowed the car keys. By car? Where could they have gone? He might have been considerate of me, given my condition. It must have been hard for him to bring it up. Pointing at his eyes, now swollen from crying, the eldest son said so. Could those two be thinking of being considerate? Even though I thought this was a bit far-fetched, I accepted it at the moment and didn't dwell on it further. However, as the two of them didn't return, even when it was time for the meal after the funeral, our faces started to cloud over with a bad premonition. What happened? No good. I tried calling them, but I couldn't reach either of them. Well, I hope nothing serious happened. The eldest son tried calling them, but it seems he couldn't reach either of them. I also sent them a text, but there was no reply. The eldest son's car hadn't returned either, and each time a relative asked about their whereabouts, we were at a loss for words. Was she feeling that bad? Maybe they went to the hospital. If that's the case, I think they should have at least contacted us. They're not pets. They'll come home eventually. Pet? Oh, I wonder how our cat is doing. While chatting with the relatives, I suddenly remembered our pet cat left at home alone. Taking out my smartphone, I activated the pet camera to check on it, and for some reason, the cat was out of its cage and someone's voice could be heard. Huh? Hearing the unexpected voice, I initially thought a burglar had broken in, and my blood ran cold. However, the voice that casually picked up our pet cat, when listened to carefully, was one we were very familiar with. Jessica, and isn't that Dad's voice too? What does that mean? Are they back at our house? I exchanged glances with my eldest son and then stared at the screen in confusion. When I increased the volume coming from the smartphone, an unthinkable conversation could be heard. The kitty is so cute. Can't we take it back with us? What's the point in keeping such an old cat? I'll get you a cuter kitten. Yay! I love you, father-in-law. Just as I heard this sickly sweet voice, the edge of my bed, visible on the screen, shook, and a creaking sound was heard. With my mind going blank, I just quietly listened to the two's conversation. Taking advantage of the fact that no one else was listening, the two were freely exchanging cruel words about me, our eldest son, and their second son. I really struggle with formal ceremonies like that. My nagging wife lacks class too, always on my case. She really scolded you, poor Kyle. Right, but thanks to our second son being gone, we got another chance to meet like this. Following those inconsiderate words from a supposed parent, the crass laughter echoed. I felt a cold sensation in my chest. Next to me, our usually mild-mannered eldest son seemed to be quietly shaking with rage. That's awful. Is that something a father should say? Maybe it's better not to think of him as a father anymore. Surpassing both anger and disbelief, my mind was eerily quiet. When I looked up, the relatives gathered at the dining table were chatting at their leisure. I could no longer think of anything, so I turned the volume of my smartphone to the maximum and drew everyone's attention. Hey, what on earth is she doing? Sneaking out of the funeral and doing such things with his son's wife. So even her sickness was a lie. Did he go to such lengths just to be alone with her? turning up the volume, the unusual conversation of the two silenced all chatter, and everyone's eyes were fixed on me. The somber mood disappeared somewhere, and everyone stared at the small smartphone screen until the nonsensical conversation between the two ended. "If there's another unfortunate accident, I can come to see you again. Maybe it will be Tyler next time." "Before that, it's gotta be my nagging wife, right? With her age, it should happen pretty soon." All the relatives were shocked by the two who, far from mourning the misfortune of the second son, was joking about making a promise for the next meeting. There was a deep gasp, and no one spoke until their conversation ended. After letting the relatives see the entire conversation and actions of the two, I closed my smartphone just as we started discussing whether to return to the venue. Everyone's hearts seemed united in anger at the two whom trampled on our family. "When they come back, we need to have a serious talk. Yes, I'd like to hear what kind of excuses they have." By now, everyone there was on the side of me and my eldest son. Along with the trembling relatives, we waited for the return of the two, who would soon find themselves walking on a bed of needles. They returned about 15 minutes later, taking about the same amount of time it takes to get from our house to the funeral hall. I looked at the two with contempt, realizing that they had been having such a conversation in my room until just now. "We're back. Why the long faces, everyone?" "Welcome back. I wonder where you've been. I was worried because you were late." "I told you before, didn't I, that Jessica wasn't feeling well, so we stepped outside." "Oh, Jessica, are you feeling better now?" "Yes, I'm perfectly fine now. I'm sorry for worrying you." I encouraged my daughter-in-law, who is waving at me with a frivolous smile, to sit across from me. I sigh as I look at my husband, who naturally takes a seat next to her. As soon as they sit down, all the relatives turn towards us at once. I started asking them questions one by one, as the two looked uncomfortable and a bit surprised. "What have you been doing all this time?" "We were out there until Jessica felt better." "Out there?" "In a family restaurant." "Really? Then where's the receipt?" "What are you suspecting me of all this time?" My husband was the first to raise his voice at my pointed questions. Glaring at me with a sour look on his face, he said as if he had no reason to be suspected. However, having heard their conversation just a moment ago, I had no hesitation left in me. "Did you really spend all this time at a family restaurant?" "That's what I've been saying. I threw away the receipt." "Then what did you eat? How about you, Jessica?" "Mother-in-law, isn't that too harsh? What on earth do you think we've done?" At my daughter-in-law's words, my face twitched and I was at loss for words. She covered her mouth with her hand and spoke as if she were about to cry. Who was the cruel one here? I wanted to scream at her to think about it with her hand on her own heart. Taking a deep breath with the relatives watching, I pointed at the sleeve of her clothing, ready to deliver the final blow to the two who continued to play dumb. "Oh, Jessica, there's some cat hair on your sleeve. Whose is it, I wonder?" This is that." "It's probably the stray cat's."
"Yes, it must have struck when I saw and petted it earlier."
"That's not it, isn't it? That's supposed to be our cat's hair. It got stuck now, didn't it?" I take out my smartphone and launch the pet camera app that I had been using earlier. It's convenient since the app also has a recording feature. I show the playback of my daughter-in-law lifting her cat right before their eyes. Then I replay the disgraceful conversation the two had been having all this time, at a volume in the same place. Finally, understanding the meaning of the cold stares from the relatives, their faces instantly turned pale.
"You knew everything and put on this charade?"
"Yes, it was funny how you two kept playing dumb."
"You're terrible, mother-in-law. This is an invasion of privacy."
I don't want to hear that from someone who went into someone else's room and enjoyed themselves with someone else's husband. When they found out their lie had been exposed, they began yelling like children. I kept my cool and consistently pointed out their misconduct. The one who finally reached their limit was the eldest son due to their lack of guilt. He slammed the table vigorously and began to accuse the two with a stern, low voice.
"How dare you two do something so disrespectful during a family funeral?"
"No, it's just that mother-in-law trapped us."
"What do you mean, no? Everything you two said was overheard here."
At the eldest son's words, the relatives around them nodded in agreement. No one here would defend the two who had blurted out that they hoped for an accidental incident to happen to me or my eldest son just so they could meet alone. When I pointed this out, the two who finally understood the meaning of the surrounding gaze glared at my eldest son with annoyance. Hey, did you purposely prepare all this to hang us out? Not at all, just a coincidence. I was just trying to check on our cat Ash, and you two just happened to be in the frame.
Even so, it's cruel to reveal it to everyone in a place like this.
I know, I never thought there would be people who would do such a thing in a place like this. Plus, I'm supposedly a terrible wife, right? While repeating my husband's word, I glanced at him. Perhaps realizing he was in the wrong, my husband stopped defending my daughter-in-law and fell silent. My daughter-in-law also tried to escape by pretending to cry and hurling insults at me, but no one was willing to lend her an ear. That's enough. I can't continue being a family with someone who can do something like this so easily.
What? You're saying we're getting a divorce?
Obviously. Tyler said this quietly to the final quiet Jessica. She tries to make excuses again in a panic, but Tyler no longer pays her any attention. I cough to get the attention of my husband, who is trying to console Jessica by patting her shoulder, as if it's someone else's problem. Do you think you're not involved? Paul. On the day we're saying goodbye to our son, you managed to do something like this and even tell outrageous lies, and you haven't even apologized until now. I'm sorry. It's fine. I don't need an apology, that's only on the surface. We should also get a divorce. My words made my husband turn pale instantly. How could he think that he would be fine? My husband, who has never taken care of his surroundings properly, will probably struggle if there's no one to take care of him. I turned my back on my husband, who was making excuses and apologizing, and I opened the door of the room. I don't want people who are about to become strangers to stay here any longer. Please leave. I'll need the car keys back. The daughter-in-law was looking at my husband with a troubled face, but there was nothing more he could do. Encouraged by the relatives, the two of them went outside with their heads down. I'll introduce you to the lawyer at our company. My son is a police officer. Call him any time if anything happens. They were truly shameless at the younger son's funeral, so that they could hear the relatives gave us reassuring words at the back of the two being driven out. With nowhere to turn, after the funeral we had the two stamp the divorce papers. Afterward, the former daughter-in-law supposedly went to her real parents for consolation when discussing alimony during the divorce. She seemed to have tried her best to portray herself as pitiful as she was then, but of course her parents were completely put off. I heard she is now working a part-time job day and night to pay the alimony. As for my ex-husband, he had apparently been pouring his savings into the former daughter-in-law and had even dipped into his own savings. He asked to give our house to me as a form of alimony, and I asked him to leave the house without a penny to his name. And so the house became mine as a substitute for alimony from my ex-husband. However, especially in my room where there were unpleasant memories of my ex-husband and the former daughter-in-law, I couldn't possibly continue to live in. So I decided to sell the house and move to a pet-friendly apartment. Now without the disrespectful ex-husband, I'm living a leisurely life with my pet cat Ash. It seems that I was more stressed out by my ex-husband than I thought, and living alone, doing whatever I want with my cat, is much more comfortable than before. After the divorce, my son occasionally comes to visit. My son also seems to be able to live a calm life after the divorce, and he told me that he's doing better than before. Recently, there's also good news. He told me that he's about to get a promotion at work. We decided to go out to eat to celebrate, but we happened to run into my ex-husband. He was completely different from before, looking like a quiet old man with the hunched shoulders. He was so different from the time he used to give us a hard time. I wouldn't have known it was my ex-husband at first glance. He didn't have any spirit in his eyes and approached me with a surprised look after he saw us. Hey, there was someone else living in our house. What's going on? Our house? It's certainly not your house anymore. Did you sell it? How could you do that? My ex-husband raised his voice at me in his old manner with a hoarse voice. He might have gone to the house he used to live in. I don't know whether he wanted to get the house back or was planning to coax me into forgiving him, but looking at his current attitude, I still couldn't think that he was remorseful. Locking my son, who was glaring at him, I said to the worn-out him, "After all, I can't sleep in a room where my husband and daughter-in-law were getting along. I don't need such a house." As I said that dismissively, my ex-husband had a look as if he came to his senses, quickly turned on his heel and left. Had he already forgotten what he had done? It felt like he had put a damper on our celebration, but we picked ourselves up and started walking on a sunny afternoon again. Hello, sister. I'm looking at souvenirs. What do you want to get? What have you been doing without contacting us at all? Huh? Did you try to reach me? I didn't notice. Did something happen? How can you say that so nonchalantly? We're at a funeral right now. Funeral? What do you mean? Whose is it? Your daughter. What do you mean? The day my niece, Selena, collapsed was the same day my sister said she was going on a trip and left her with me. Despite knowing that the child had a fever, my sister left her behind and went off. I tried contacting her numerous times, but there was no response until it was too late. I was even filled with anger. I've been married for 4 years, and the fact that we haven't been able to have a child was my concern. Right after getting married, we started family planning and tried many times, but we haven't been blessed with a good result. My sister had a shotgun wedding 2 years ago, but divorced her husband within half a year. Since then, she had started to leave her child every chance she gets. It's good practice for when you have a child in the future, isn't it? So it's fine, right? She always leaves her child with me, saying this. I have mixed feelings every time, but the niece is innocent, so I accepted. But I'm really fed up with her ignoring us. And this time too, I'm going on a trip with a friend for a week from tomorrow, so I want to ask you to look after Selena again. Again? I just took care of her last week, didn't I? Well, I had work last week, so I couldn't help it, could I? Can't you ask your parents sometimes instead of us? I have plans too. What plans could you, a stay-at-home wife, possibly have? It's fine, right? But for a whole week? I'll definitely buy you a souvenir. I've been planning this overseas trip for a long time. I can't cancel it. Then why don't you take Selena with you? It's a bother to others if a child is there. Besides, I want to enjoy myself alone. Selena will be lonely and you're too self-centered. So I'll bring her before I leave tomorrow. Bye. I couldn't help but sigh at the unilateral end of the call. I decided to talk about this with my husband when he got home from work. Really? Yes, that's why I want your cooperation. Sorry, but I'm on a long-term business trip from tomorrow. Is that so? How long? About 5 days. If the negotiations drag on, it might be a week. So I have to take care of her alone during that time? Well, it can't be helped because it's my job. I understand. If it's really tough, you should ask for help to my mom. I had to take care of her for a week by myself. At that point, I was already feeling like I was at the end of my tether. My niece was very attached to my husband. Perhaps because she had no father, she saw my husband as a father figure. There was a time when she cried so much at night that I didn't know what to do. At that time, my husband managed to calm her down, but this time I'm alone. I was very anxious about the possibility of the same thing happening again. On the day of my sister's trip, my husband left early in the morning for his business trip, and I was left alone waiting for my sister. Well, take care. Saying so, Billy tried to leave promptly, but at that moment, I noticed something off about my niece. Hey, Selena's face looks red, doesn't it? She seems to have a bit of a fever since this morning. What? You're leaving a child in this state? But it's a trip I've been looking forward to for a long time, so I can't not go. Even so, when the child has a fever, you should at least take her to the hospital. It's nothing unusual, so it'll be fine. If you're that worried, you take her. Then I'll go. I don't have much time before my flight. Wait a minute. It's a good rehearsal for when a child gets sick. You can learn a lot from this. Bye. I couldn't believe she was leaving a child with a fever to go on a trip. Looking at the languid Selena, an indescribable anxiety started to take over me. She was only 2 years old, so I couldn't even give her over-the-counter medicine. Fortunately, it seemed like a mild fever, so I cooled her head and put her to bed. Not knowing what to do, I contacted my mom. Mom, she's done it again. She's left Selena with me and gone on her trip. And she seems to have a fever. What should I do? Calm down. Is the fever very high? It's only a mild fever right now, but then let's just keep an eye on her. If she has a seizure or a convulsion, call an ambulance immediately. Okay. Contact me right away if anything happens. Hearing my mom's words brought a little relief, but I knew I couldn't endure this for a whole week. Even though she only had a slight fever, it was heartbreaking to see her little body fighting it. And then, that night, my niece's condition took a sudden turn. Her fever soared, and as she began to suffer, I frantically called an ambulance. I tried to call my sister as well, but for some reason, I couldn't get through no matter how many times I dialed.
Why can't I get through? Maybe it's because she's abroad?
I tried to contact my husband, but I couldn't reach him either. All I got was a merciless announcement, as if the antenna was out of range. Just when I felt like I was about to be crushed by anxiety, my mother arrived as soon as I contacted her.
Mom, what should I do? I...
It's okay, dear. The doctor is here, don't worry. But despite the treatment, her condition worsened rapidly. I tried to contact my sister every hour, but I still couldn't get through. And then, 4 days later...
No way! This can't be real! I'm so sorry! I'm so sorry!
Selina passed away. A 2-year-old child had died without seeing her mother for the last time. I didn't know what to do anymore, and I just broke down crying. It's not your fault. There was nothing you could do.
I know, but...
Anyway, why can't we get through to her? What on earth is she doing? What is she really up to?
If only I had asked for at least her accommodation.
As I was being crushed by regret, I had no choice but to leave Selina's remains to a funeral home. I couldn't discuss what to do next because I couldn't contact either my sister or my husband. His business trip was supposed to end tomorrow, so all I could do was wait for him to come back. Seeing me exhausted, my mother took care of me, and I finally got a good sleep for the first time in 4 days. The next day, I tried to contact my sister again from the morning, but the result was the same, and my husband, who was supposed to come back, did not return. I was worried that the business negotiations might be extended, so I decided to call his company. I was then told that my husband had taken a week off, not a business trip. I had a bad feeling about it. I hadn't paid much attention to it until now, but as close as Selina was to my husband, my sister was close to him as well. In front of me, my husband often told my sister, "You're cute," and my sister was pleased with it. And when my sister left Selina, my husband often came home late, and recently they came home together. Once I started to doubt, more and more questions arose. In this case, the day they left and the number of days they were away were the same. Could this be a coincidence? I looked at my sister's Instagram to see if there was any evidence, and there I saw several photos of her enjoying room service meals in a hotel room dated 2 days ago. And when I looked closely at those photos, I saw my husband's figure reflected in the mirror. I was now certain the two were having an affair, leaving behind a sick child to go on a romantic getaway, and with her sister's husband at that. This was unforgivable. I saved the images, and in between preparing for Selina's funeral, managed to get a divorce form. 2 days later, Selina's funeral was held with just close family present.
Why isn't she here? Is there still no contact from her?
That's right. Not even showing up to her own child's funeral. What a mother. Unbelievable. Just as our parents were raging, a call finally came in from my sister.
Hey sis, I'm at the airport right now looking at souvenirs. I'm coming back today, so I was wondering what you want to get. I also want to thank you for looking after Selina. What on earth have you been doing? I was on vacation. Why didn't you pick up the phone when I called you so many times? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice. Maybe it's because I was abroad. Anyway, do you want something? I'm at a funeral right now, so I'll talk to you later. Whose?
Your daughter's.
What do you mean?
Selina passed away 2 days ago.
Wait, I don't understand. Isn't it because you left Selina when she had a fever? She was calling you, saying mommy, mommy, until the very end. What? This amounts to murdering your own child. That's not... Wait a second. If you can't believe it, come back as soon as possible. That night, unbelievably, my sister returned with my husband. Seeing my husband comforting my sister, who was sobbing in front of Selina's portrait, I felt disgusted. I'm sorry. If I had been there properly, I'm really sorry. I hate to interrupt you while you're crying, but I have something to ask you. What? I've been trying to contact you every day since the night you left for your trip. I called, emailed, and texted you, but you didn't respond at all. Why? That's because I was abroad. I couldn't use my phone. I see. Then, what's this? At this point, I showed her the photos from her Instagram. These were posted 4 days ago. That means you were able to use your phone in the hotel, right? That's... You saw my messages but thought it was too much trouble to respond, right? That's why you didn't even read my messages. But that's because you didn't want to contact me, right? That's not true. Then let's ask the other person in this picture. The other person? Hey, did you enjoy your trip with my sister? What? I zoomed in on the picture and showed it to my husband and sister. Their faces turned pale as they saw it. Even our parents widened their eyes as they saw the photo. The person reflected in this mirror is you, isn't it? What's the explanation for this? Isn't it a look-alike? I was on a business trip. I contacted your office. They told me you were on vacation. And for a whole week. If this isn't you, where were you? You must have enjoyed yourself a lot. You even posted this photo. But wasn't it a bit careless? I didn't expect to be reflected in the mirror. I'm sorry. Finally, the two confessed their affair. This made our parents furious. What are you two doing? Leaving your child to go on a romantic getaway? This is unthinkable. Don't mess around. You're no longer a part of this family. We're cutting ties. We've let things slide because you're a single mother, but I wonder how much money we've given to you up till now. I'd want it all back, but consider it as payoff money. I don't want to see your face anymore. Wait a minute. Mom! Dad! Shut up. Don't ever come back here. Sis, say something. What do you want me to say? Isn't everything your fault? You should regret what you've done for the rest of your life. Unable to forgive my sister who disregarded her own child's life, I spoke harshly. Billy kept crying and apologizing to Selina, but she is never coming back. And of course, I couldn't forgive my husband who was constantly by such a sister's side. You're not unrelated to this. What? Fill this out right now. We'll discuss alimony through a lawyer, so prepare for that. Divorce papers? Why? Why? Isn't it obvious? I can't believe you flirted with my sister. I don't want to be with such a disgusting person. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. We can talk it out. Excuse me? I can't have a proper conversation with a man who lies about a business trip to go on a romantic getaway. No, that's... Please go through the lawyer for further discussions. I submitted the divorce papers to the city hall, and it was decided that I would receive a total of $35,000 in alimony from the two of them. I decided to leave the house and go back to my parents' home. I'm back again. I'm sorry. What are you talking about? You're our only daughter. You don't need to worry. That's right. It's better to stay here forever than to be with a weird guy. I'll be in your care for a while. It seems that Billy and Jay ended up together afterwards, but they couldn't get along due to their differing values and broke up in about half a year. Billy had to work day and night to pay the alimony and is now living in a rundown apartment. Jay worked at his company for a while, but after the affair was revealed, it became difficult for him to stay there, and after repaying the alimony, no one knows where he went. Well, it doesn't really matter now. I'm now leading a leisurely life without having to impose anything on anyone. I'm really glad that I can enjoy a sense of liberation for the first time in a long time, planning to go on a trip with my parents or something. I'm fine being alone for now, but I do want children, so I hope to find a wonderful partner someday. I never liked him from the start. There's no place here for a fat monster like you. Go home. On my brother's wedding day, my brother's bride showered me, who was pregnant, with a torrent of abuse. It was my dear brother's wedding. I really wanted to attend. But after being told off like this, even I couldn't bear it. The situation took an unexpected turn after I declined my brother's wedding. My name is Anna, 30 years old. I'm a working mother juggling part-time work and housework. I married my husband, Theo, who is 2 years older than me 3 years ago. He is a buyer and salesperson at a major department store. Due to his fresh appearance, his sales performance at the department store is always good. We wanted a child from the start, and just recently, after fertility treatment, we were blessed with our long-awaited first child. I was particularly thrilled when I found out I was pregnant, because I desperately wanted a child with the man I loved. When I told my husband, he too was overjoyed and jumping for joy. Theo, it looks like we've finally been blessed. What? You mean? Yes, it's our child. I'm finally pregnant. Really? Wow. I'm so happy I could cry. My husband hugged me and said thank you with tears in his eyes. Since then, we've been looking forward to the day when we can meet our child who will be born soon. In the midst of all this, there was one more person who was eagerly awaiting the birth of my child. That was my older brother, Hugo. Since we were little, my brother, who is 4 years older than me, has always adored me. That hasn't changed even now that we're adults and we, as siblings, are still close. Of course, I had also told him about the fertility treatment. So when I announced my pregnancy to him, he was as happy and tearful as my husband. I heard that even our mother at home was so ecstatic she couldn't believe it. Whether it's about marriage or pregnancy, my brother always wishes for my happiness. And I love my brother just as much. One day, 2 months into my pregnancy, I received a call from my brother. What did you want to talk about, Hugo? Upon asking him right away, my brother scratched his head embarrassingly and said, Well, I'm getting married. What? Getting married? You, Hugo? Hugo went to boys' schools in middle and high school, and even in college he was in the science department, which had few women, so I never heard of him having a girlfriend. He didn't even respond to any of the arranged marriage meetings our parents had suggested a few times. I think he has a good-looking face, but his shy personality has been a big problem, and he was always the type who was distant from women. And now, all of a sudden, he's getting married. I really couldn't hide my surprise. I guess it's no wonder you were surprised, huh? If someone suddenly tells you something like this. Well, yeah, so what's she like? She's 3 years younger than me, so 1 year older than you, Emma. Her name is Mila. We met through work. Through work? Well, she's the daughter of president of a company I deal with. The president's daughter? Wow, do things like that really happen, like in a drama? As I opened my eyes wide in surprise, my brother chuckled and said, You are exaggerating. Even though she's the president's daughter, she also works hard at her father's company. Since we're both getting on in years, we decided to get married sooner rather than later. Seeing my brother unusually serious, I felt a warm feeling in my heart. I was glad that my brother, who has always wished for my happiness, finally had someone important in his life. 1 month later, my brother came to our apartment with his fiancée. Nice to meet you, I'm Mila. I'm dating your brother. Hugo's fiancée Mila was a beautiful woman with a good style, exactly the type of a career woman. I felt deeply that she was a person from a different dimension than me. Nice to meet you, Mila. I'm Emma, his sister. Oh, so you are the little sister. After Mila responded to my greeting, she looked at me intently. I felt as if I had been glared at for a moment. But was it just my imagination? But it seemed like that premonition was correct. After that, she didn't talk to me much and kept talking to my husband instead. Theo, you were amazing, working at that long-established department store. Suddenly engaged in conversation by her, my husband responded with a flustered, Well, yeah. I haven't been able to go to department stores lately. If I go shopping next time, could you pick something out for me? Sure, thank you. I'll be waiting for you. This fiancée, her attitude towards my husband and me was obviously different. Moreover, it seemed as though she was sending a sticky gaze at my husband. But I didn't want to ruin the mood, and most importantly, she was the one chosen by my brother. Just as my brother had wished for my happiness, I also wanted him to be happy. I didn't want to ruin my brother's happiness for a silly reason like her being cold. Despite feeling many suspicions, I said nothing. Since then, Mila has been visiting the department store where my husband works frequently. Today, too, my husband came home and started to grumble with a sigh. Mila came to my place again today. What, again? I'm sure she came yesterday too, right? Yeah, it's nice that she's buying a lot of stuff, but even when I'm dealing with other customers, she just fasts in. The other salespeople are also troubled. It's a bit frustrating. I had no idea that was happening. According to my husband, she apparently spends tens of thousands of dollars every time she shops. While it's good for the store, my husband was worried, saying, no matter if she's the president's daughter, isn't her sense of money a bit off? Several months later, the long-awaited wedding of my brother came. By this time, I was in the later stages of pregnancy, and my belly had grown noticeable. The once-in-a-lifetime wedding of my beloved brother. I'm sure it will be a wonderful ceremony. My heart was dancing from the moment I left the house. I was wearing the maternity party dress I had bought for this day. The incident happened when I arrived at the venue and was headed to the reception. I'm Emma, the groom's sister, and this is my husband, Theo. When I gave our names to the woman at the reception, she looked troubled. You're the sister, right? Yes, Hugo's sister. That's strange. The next moment, she said something unbelievable. We were told that the sister will not be attending. What? What are you talking about? I'm the groom's sister. Of course I'm attending. But we were told that the groom's sister will be absent due to a prior appointment. Wait a minute. There must be some mistake. Both my husband and I are definitely attending. Theo's name is on the guest list, so he's participating. It seems that the only person marked as absent is the sister. What? Caught off guard by that unexpected event, I was at a loss for words. Instead, my husband asked the receptionist, who gave you the information about my wife's absence? It was from Mila, the bride. Mila did? My husband's expression stiffened as if he had guessed something. He demanded to the reception, please call Mila here. Soon, Mila and woman who appeared to be her mother showed up. To confirm the truth of the matter, I confronted Mila. Mila, what's going on? I've been marked as absent. Oh, that? Well, that's how it is. Wait a minute. I never said I was going to be absent. Then she gave a snort of laughter and said calmly, I couldn't care less about your opinion. You were in the way. So I decided you wouldn't participate. Understand? What are you talking about? To begin with, I never liked you. Mila, what are you? Just because you have a somewhat handsome husband and brother, you act so innocent. I didn't like you from the moment we first met. Despite your plain face, the name Emma is too fancy for you. You are a hindrance to my happiness. Do you understand? I thought she was cold only to me, but I didn't expect to be hated this much. My body froze and I couldn't find the words to speak. Looking down on me, she spat out coldly. Didn't you hear me? You are in the way. There is no seat for a pregnant monster like you, so go home. I was speechless, but the surprises didn't stop there. Following Mila, even her mother started saying things that made me doubt my ears. Mila is right. It would be a nuisance if a flump like you were at Mila's wedding. It's beautiful enough that Mila has to become family with you. Mila came at me, who was turning pale, saying, Go home now. Can you leave quickly because you are in the way? You are an eyesore, ugly pregnant monster. At the moment, the anger I had been holding back exploded. Just as I was about to retort, my husband raised his voice instead of me. What the hell are you saying to my wife? I never thought Mila would be so rude. That's enough. Let's go home, Theo. What? Are you sure? I don't want to be here anymore. Let's go home. I forcibly pulled my husband's arm and left the venue. Serves you right? Mila and her mother continued to hurl abuse until the end. Several hours later, my brother rushed into our house. Emma, Theo, Mila did something terrible. I'm truly sorry. I asked my brother, who was apologizing with a sorry look. It's not your fault, Hugo. What happened to the ceremony?
I asked the guests to leave in the middle of the ceremony. I couldn't possibly continue the ceremony after what happened to my little sister.
Right, that was a wise decision. But why? Why did Mila do such a thing to me?
Well, I was shocked when I heard about it too.
What? Then my brother quietly opened his mouth.
It seems Mila was jealous of you.
What? Jealous?
You and I have a good relationship as siblings, right? On top of that, Theo is quite handsome. She seemed to have been annoyed with you, while at the peak of happiness being pregnant, for some reason.
What's that? Was it because my husband was handsome that she repeatedly shopped more than necessary at my husband's department store? I couldn't find any more words to say for such a stupid reason. While caring about me, my brother continued to talk.
She didn't like the attention being drawn to you, a pregnant woman, more than her own wedding. All the guests would naturally talk to you, the pregnant woman, wouldn't they? Asking things like, how many months are you? Or you look so happy. She seemed to have hated that.
I can't believe it. Just for that reason? My brother, who was busy with work, seemed to have left all the preparations for the ceremony to her.
When I tried to say something, I was told that the bride is the main character of the ceremony. I couldn't interfere.
So she didn't even know that I have been made absent with my consent.
I'm really sorry for hurting you. It's my fault.
My brother apologized again. The next day, we were told by our mother to come to our parents' house, and we hurriedly headed there. There was Mila's father, who looked furious with a red face. With his daughter Mila and wife in tow, he seemed quite grumpy.
Hey Mila, don't you have something to say to Eva?
When her father urged her in a cold tone, she clicked her tongue and threw a tantrum. Why should I have to apologize? I'm the main character of the ceremony.
You, cut it out.
At this point, Mila's mother interjected, seeming to side with Mila. But why should Mila have to apologize? The one at fault is all this woman. Mila and her mother, showing no remorse, looked like demons. Then Mila's father opened his mouth tremblingly.
You guys, who are you talking to? What are you saying to these people?
He looked devastated.
I'm really sorry for what my daughter and wife have done. Please, I beg you, can't you forgive us for this incident?
No matter how much he apologized, it was impossible to forgive them. I spoke out against Mila's father. How can we forgive you? I couldn't attend my dear brother's wedding, you know. Do you think we can forgive you after all the terrible things that were said?
Oh my, I'm in trouble. If you don't forgive us, our company...
Yes, the father was apologizing just to protect his own company. The company run by Mila's father is a wholesale dealer dealing with imported goods, and has a business relationship with my brother's company. But in this case, my brother was furious and directly requested his boss to stop dealing with that company. That's why he is begging his sister for forgiveness, hoping to resume business with my brother's company. I didn't know that my brother's company had such power. But apparently, in terms of status, my brother was above Mila, even though she was the president's daughter. The father was desperately apologizing as much as possible. But I could see through his intention of ultimately is to protect the company, which made me even more uncomfortable. There's no point in talking any further. I formally told Mila and her family, I will never associate with your name. If you marry my brother, I will break off ties with him too. Wait a minute, my father is apologizing so much. Don't you have a human heart? I glared sharply at Mila, who was verbally abusing me. A human heart? The one who stirred up trouble can talk. Who should be apologizing? Don't make your father apologize so desperately. Your stupid selfishness has ruined my brother Hugo's happiness. A woman like you doesn't deserve my brother. Know your place, you trashy woman. With those words, I kicked Mila and her family out of my parents' house. Afterwards, I heard that my brother and Mila had broken off their engagement. She was kicking up a fuss, saying, I don't want to break up. And in the end, my brother had to hire a lawyer. As a bonus, my brother arranged for a consolation payment for me. I was reluctant, but my brother told me it's the least I can do to apologize, and I gratefully accepted. The misfortune of Mila's family continued, and her father's company eventually went bankrupt.
It seems they couldn't keep up the business after my brother's company, which was the backbone of their operations, stopped dealing with them. In this incident, they lost everything. Looking back, it was really their own doing. It's only natural that she, who could easily spout such abusive language, would face such retribution. On the other hand, I successfully gave birth and I'm living happily every day. My brother seems to have recovered from the broken engagement and comes over to my house almost every day to dote on my daughter. Hugo, switch with me. What, Theo? You've been holding her all this time, haven't you? Louise, I'll be leaving in an hour. Oh well, can't be helped then. Haha. My husband and brother were competing for my newly born adorable daughter. Listening to their pleasant conversation, I felt a warm feeling in my heart. During the funeral of my eldest son, I checked the pet camera and found my husband and eldest son's wife in the middle of it in our home's bathroom. I rushed home to verify the situation, and their conversation flew into my ears. But is this okay doing something like this in the middle of John's funeral? It's fine. He was obedient and cute like a pet dog. Really, you're a terrible wife. You're the same, Robert, acting like a beast despite being a father. Let's fall into hell together happily. From there, the two, who got heated up, started the second round. The indecent voice of the daughter-in-law echoed, and I retreated with my ears covered. Ah, disgusting. And I never and Mama said that. I clenched my lips to the point of flaking and swore revenge on my husband and daughter-in-law. John, I won't let your wife and father, who betrayed you, get away with this. Your mother will get back up and properly, so watch over us. I am Amelia, a 70-year-old housewife. I married a husband who believed that women should protect the home and men should work hard. And while taking care of my husband, I raised my eldest son on my own. I'm a housewife, so I won't ask him to help with half the housework. But he drove the eldest son and me, who were crying in the middle of the night, into the living room saying, "You're noisy," demanded all the housework from me, who was staying up all night due to the baby's crying. And to top it off, he didn't bath the eldest son, didn't change his diapers, didn't even try to interact with him. Even when we were in the same room, he was only watching the newspaper and TV, and I got tired of him, father who was indifferent to our eldest son in his cute face. What my husband was interested in was not me, his wife, or the eldest son who talked with an innocent smile, but a pretty girl idol dancing on a music show. The sight of a bearded man with a belly ignoring his family and sticking to the TV, and being fascinated by a teen idol saying she's cute was not a pleasant thing. Our bedroom where I spent time with him was quickly filled with posters and photos. Plans to go to the amusement park were crushed by concerts. Events were prioritized over cheering at the sports festival, and CDs were played at high volume in the house. Maybe because of such an environment, our eldest son was not interested in women even when he came of age, and there was no sign of marriage even after he turned 30. Just as I had started to accept that he might remain a bachelor for life, he came home one day after his 40th birthday with a fiancée, announcing, "There's someone I want you to meet." She was a tidy woman who wore her long black hair down and looked good in floral dresses. Mia works for a business partner of the company I work for. We've met several times through work, and I've come to realize that she's a wonderful person, so I asked her out. Just last week, John proposed to me and said that he wanted to introduce me to his parents. The fiancée, her cheeks slightly colored, stood bashfully by the side of my son, offering a shy smile. I wondered if she was an introvert too. She barely spoke, but when she did open her mouth, her voice came out as sweet and delicate as an animated fairy. My husband also watched this scene unfold with a smile. I felt like me, a gentlewoman might just be perfect for my introverted son. With such thoughts, I felt relieved. Little did I know that 3 years later, things would take such a turn. I really don't do well with men. This was my daughter-in-law's favorite phrase. She said that because she lost her father at a young age and was raised solely by her mother, she becomes excessively nervous around men. Even when talking to convenience store clerks, she says she gets so nervous that all she can do is look down and answer in a low voice, particularly for typical muscle men with thick figures and broad shoulders. She just can't talk to them at all. That's why she was drawn to my son, who has a more neurogeneric appearance. In that case, my husband with his big body and thick beard was not a good match for her. Well, my husband may have a loud voice and a bit of a rough appearance, but he has his kind points. He's not scary at all, though our cat does tend to avoid him. I joked and my daughter-in-law responded with a strange smile. I'm sorry, I'll try to get used to him. Her way of saying it irritated me. She made my husband out to be some sort of exotic creature. Of course I didn't voice my feelings, but simply replied, please do. My daughter-in-law, who was initially afraid of my husband, gradually became accustomed to him, as she had promised. 3 years later, they now share conversations, which is great progress. She also began to open up to me gradually, and we even started going shopping together. And that's when the mask of my demure and quiet daughter-in-law began to peel off. For example, when she stands next to me, people often mistake her for my granddaughter. Even an acquaintance I met at the nearest station for the first time for a while thought she was the daughter of my eldest son. No, I'm John's wife. My, such a young wife? How nice. I didn't particularly care about this exchange. It's true that my daughter-in-law has a baby face and could pass for her late 20s. And it's also true that a neat outfit might have blouse with frills and a navy blue dress suits her. The issue was what my daughter-in-law said after being mistaken for a grandchild. I'm always mistaken for Boomerang. Sorry about that. As she grinned while saying that, I concealed my annoyance and responded like this. You don't have to apologize. You do look young and cute after all. Oh, do you think I'm cute? By the way, you should try to look a bit younger too, by dyeing your hair pink or purple. I was annoyed at her uninvited advice. I'm not a celebrity and it's enough to look my age. Moreover, and not to sound boastful, I've maintained the style I had when I was young, and I enjoy dressing appropriately for my age. Actually, I'm transitioning to natural gray hair. I don't think I have the courage to dye a couple episodes. Only beautiful people can pull off gray hair, you know. My daughter-in-law's mirth in a new way. Well, I don't really care, but I feel sorry for your husband. He started going to the gym recently and looks good, so you should make an effort as well, especially since you are older than him to begin with. I struggle to swallow the words, mind your own business, that were over the tip of my tongue. Why do I have to listen to all this from my daughter-in-law? I suppressed my annoyance and smiled at my daughter-in-law. Thank you for your advice. I'm glad to see that you and John seem to be getting along well. The main reason I resist arguing with my daughter-in-law is because I don't want to be disliked by my eldest son. I've heard far too many stories about mothers who fell out with their sons because the sons sided with their wives during arguments. It's about the woman my introverted eldest son mustered up the courage to ask out. Did it for 2 years and then proposed to. Whenever they return to my home, I can tell that my son cares deeply for his wife. Despite her sharp attitude towards me, she talks and laughs happily with my son as if she were a different person. Yes, John is so cute. I can't believe he's older than me. I love him. The sight of my daughter-in-law blushing and smiling was adorable, and I felt relieved knowing that they had been married. So, despite my daughter-in-law's aggravating behavior, I managed to endure by venting to my sister. The daughter-in-law of yours has a bad attitude. My sister grimaced, a coffee cup in her hand. Are you being taken for granted, Amelia? Maybe so. Why don't you show some maternal authority every once in a while? If things continue like this, John will be totally under her thumb. My sister, who got divorced 10 years into her marriage and remained single thereafter, has no children. Therefore, she had always doted on my eldest son as if he were her own. I remember how she was more thrilled about his wedding than I was. Now, all that's left is for them to have a baby. Yes, that would be nice, but they seem happy together afterwards, so I've been refraining from interfering. When I said this, my sister smiled softly and replied, I see. One day, when I was quietly bearing my discomfort towards my daughter-in-law and going about my usual way, I finished my shopping at the supermarket and was about to head home when I received a rare call from her. Mother-in-law, something happened to John. My daughter-in-law, who was almost shouting, choked on my words and started to sob. Did something happen to him? Where are you now? At the police station. Afterward, my husband and I rushed to the police station, where we were confronted with the lifeless body of our son. We were citizens. The post-mortem examination revealed that he died from a stroke. His pale face looked serene as if he was simply asleep. In the midst of our shock, my husband pulled out his cell phone, taking over for both me and my daughter-in-law. He called the funeral home and temple that we had used for his own parents' funerals and arranged a weekend funeral. He arranged for our son's body to be transported to a funeral home near our home.
His calm and collected demeanor in these moments was something I was very grateful for. We then contacted our relatives. The wake was to be held the following day, with the funeral the day after that. Even during the wake, I couldn't help but feel that my son would start moving at any moment. I couldn't pull myself away from his coffin. My daughter-in-law seemed to share my feelings. She knelt beside the coffin, crying bitterly. My sister, brother, and other relatives tactfully left us alone, leaving me, my husband, and my daughter-in-law to surround the coffin. We spent the night reminiscing about our son, tears streaming down our faces. The morning came, and the funeral began. As I listened to the satra and incense offering, the reality of my eldest son's death started to sink little by little. Just the other day, we spoke on the phone. His gentle voice still lingers in my ears, yet the idea that I'll never hear it again feels unreal. I choked up, and tears started to flow. Among the sporadic sobs heard around, mine was the loudest. As there was a time before the departure for cremation, those of us moving to the crematoria waited in the room. Suddenly I remembered that I had left my cap unattended the previous night, so I started my mobile app for the web camera. "Oh, you installed the web camera, didn't you?" My sister sitting next to me asked with interest. "Yes, Jennifer, it's convenient because you can watch from your phone." I was worried about how he was doing. I saw Robert return home a while ago. Maybe he's playing with the cat, I wondered. Our cat is not fond of him at all. As I laughed and looked at my phone, I froze. I even forgot to breathe as I stared at the screen. What was displayed was not a heartwarming scene of my husband playing with an adorable cat. It was a scene of him entangled naked with her daughter-in-law. They had left the bathroom and the washroom doors wide open and were engaged in their intimate act. All my streamed unknowingly via the web camera installed in the hallway. I stood up with my phone in hand and told my sister in trembling voice, "Jennifer, I need to go home for a bit." Robert took the car when we went to pick up something he forgot. "Will you take the bus?" "Yes, I'll do that." I bolted from the funeral parlor. I caught a bus that was lucky nearby and enjoyed the time inside with the feeling of my heart about to burst. I got off at the bus stop and started running immediately. I gently unlocked the front door, ascended the hallway, stroked the head of my cat across with a purring throat, and tiptoed toward the washroom. Unlike before, the washroom door was closed, but it seemed they were being intimate with the bathroom door open. Their carefree behavior, inappropriate for their age, resonated down the hallway. "Oh, Robert, don't touch me there." Mia's skin is so smooth. It's completely different from my wife's. Women are best when they're young, after all. "Robert, darling, don't compare a 70-year-old grandma with a 35-year-old. But is it okay doing such things on the day of John's funeral?" "It's fine. I told you. I married John because I fell in love with Robert at first sight. He was also obedient and cute, like a pet dog." "You really are a terrible wife." "Robert, you are a terrible father too. Let's go to hell together then." From there, the two of them started the second round. The indecent voice of the wife reverberated, and I plugged my ears and backed away. Ah, disgusting. A murmur slipped out. My affection for my husband had long since gone, so even if I hear the voice of my husband flirting with John's wife in the bathroom, no feelings of jealousy arise. More than that, I felt a sense of disgust at what they were doing on such an important day. And above all, feelings close to hatred welled up at the fact that they had betrayed my precious son in the worst possible way. A cat approached me, curled up in the hallway, with my mouth covered, raised a worried cry, and licked my wrist. "Oscar, thank you, I'm okay." As I spoke softly to the cat and stroked its smooth paw, I slowly calmed down. As I regained my composure, a fierce hatred for my husband and the wife welled up again. I bit my lip until it was about to bleed, and swore revenge on my husband and daughter-in-law. "John, I won't let the wife and the father who betrayed you go free. Your mother will make sure to get back at them, so watch over me." First, I locked the bathroom door. It was a lock that I installed when my eldest son was young, to prevent him from going into the bathroom by himself. The fact that it was left because it was too much trouble to remove, and that it would come in handy in such a way was unexpected. Furthermore, after throwing their change of clothes in the middle of the hallway, I sent the recorded voice of my husband and daughter-in-law in the act, along with an explanation to my sister. Then I immediately received a phone call. "Amelia, don't send me disgusting stuff. It's going to dirty my phone." "Sorry, I guess you feel the same way, Jennifer." I couldn't help but laugh. Your husband and daughter-in-law were the worst. What are they doing during John's funeral? I can't believe they are sane. I know, right? That's why I'm thinking of punishing them. When I told my sister my plan, she laughed out loud. Read it to me, please, Jennifer. After handing out the phone, I sighed. I don't even have time to soak in the grief of losing my eldest son. After a while, my sister came to my house with my brother and my husband's brothers. The relatives gathered in the living room in their morning clothes, wearing puzzled expressions. Amelia, it's almost time for the departure. Why call us home? I apologize for the inconvenience, father-in-law. The reason is this. As soon as I turned on the switch of my mobile app, the morning voices of the wife and husband echoed in the living room. Oh, it's disgusting no matter how many times I hear it. I had the volume of the camera at maximum, so it was quite powerful. The relatives' complexions changed and murmurs spread. My brother asked me tearfully, Jennifer, this is Robert's wounds, right? And the woman is Leah? I'll take you near the scene. I opened the door to the living room and met the relatives. The relatives followed me, looking anxious. Since I had left the door to the bathroom wide open, the echoed voices of the two people were clearly audible in the hallway. The relatives frowned and spoke up one after another. It's true, doing such a thing in the middle of a funeral. They are hopeless, unforgivable. Given that John has died, let's cut ties with these people. The noise must have reached them. The two stopped their activity, talked in whispers, and then reached for the door to the bathroom. Huh? It won't open. Amelia, you are in there, right? Open up. Okay. I'm opening it. The moment I unlocked it, the door opened with a clatter. Unaware of anything, the husband and wife came out into the bathroom, naked and not even trying to cover themselves. Enough with these childish pranks. What the? Robert, what's wrong? The two screamed, turning their backs to us. No, we don't want to see you ugly behind either. Robert, where are our clothes? Hey, Amelia, give us back our clothes. If you want your clothes, apologize to us and explain everything first. Alright, just hurry up. When I threw their underwear and the bath towel at their feet, the husband and the wife wiped their bodies in the bathroom and hurriedly got dressed. When they came out into the hallway with their heads down, the relatives fiercely berated them. Robert, what were you thinking? It's your son's funeral. You betray your wife and son, you shameless man. Mia, you're the chief mourner. Are you out of your mind? The husband and wife, sitting awkwardly in their underwear in the hallway, are severely berated by the relatives and are shrunken. I felt a sense of relief in my chest. But my anger wouldn't be gone by just this. There's still the departure and the memorial service, so I'll be going back to the venue. You two are not eligible to participate. Stay here and reflect on what you've done. We're leaving now, but we'll hear from you, Amelia, later. Don't try to run away. So Robert and Mia, sit quietly and wait. We told the husband and the wife and went back to the funeral. When I looked back at the living room on my way out, they were changing into their morning clothes. With a crestfallen look, they are just pretending to be remorseful in front of us. When I picked up my eldest son's bones at the crematorium, the regret welled up and tears overflowed. The staff at the crematorium probably thought I was crying from the grief of losing my eldest son. They can't imagine that my husband was taken by my son's wife, and I'm shaking with anger. My sister, sensing my feelings, gently hugged my shoulders. We returned to the venue, and my brother took over as a chief mourner, in place of my daughter-in-law. After all the funeral procedures were over, all the relatives except my sister went home. On their way out, my downcast brother spoke to my sister and me. Jennifer, please take care of Amelia. Amelia, you have to keep it together. David, thank you. I'll be all right. I forced a smile at my brother and went home with my sister. As soon as we opened the front door, we heard my husband's vulgar laughter, and we exchanged glances. My sister touched her forehead and shook her head in disgust. I took off my shoes, furrowed my brow, and headed for the living room. And my husband and daughter-in-law, who had been snacking and laughing uproariously, hastily straightened their posture at the sight of us. My body trembles with anger at the sight of the two of them sloppily dressed in their morning clothes. At this point, I decided to give them a piece of my mind without any reservations. First, my daughter-in-law. Robert, Mia, are you really reflecting on what you've done? Of course we are. It was just a moment of sudden impulse. Exactly. Please forgive us, Amelia. My sister started to speak to my husband and daughter-in-law, who were pretending to be remorseful. I stopped her and showed my daughter-in-law my phone.
So are you reflecting on this too? What? Is there something else? Here. My daughter-in-law, who had been speaking in acute voice and squirming, suddenly let out a low voice. I swiftly dodged her attempt to snap my phone and shouted to my husband. What is this, Amelia? What is this? My confused husband read out the contents of the phone screen. Nia is verbally abusive to the new recruits, and the atmosphere at work is terrible. Please do something. My husband gave my daughter-in-law a suspicious look. My husband hates people who verbally abuse them weak, even if it's in a fight, saying nasty things to staff who take time off due to a child illness, pouring harsh words on those who can't learn something in one go at work. 10 people have quit in the past year. We've reached our limit. If you won't let Mia quit, all of us will, from all the factory side. My daughter-in-law throws as I continue to read. I took a photo of them at the factory manager shouting, Robert, why don't you tell her how I know about this? Amelia managed to learn where the factory and started on doing where no one's are located. She's the lone owner. I added to my husband's exclamation, it's the land I inherited from my father. That's how I became close to the factory manager and the president. The other day the factory manager came to me for advice. I intended to talk to Mia, but I postponed it when John passed away. My husband looked at Mia, his face showing disbelief. Mia, is this true? My daughter-in-law clicked her tongue. So what if it is? They are ugly and incompetent. It's irritating just to look at them. There is no reason to verbally abuse the movies. What, Mel, you're making me out to be the bad guy too, Robert? My husband seemed turned off by Mia's confrontational attitude. He only ever saw the surface of Mia. He probably didn't know she was often making snide remarks about me. Now it's my husband's time. It's disappointing that you would use such an easy language at your part-time job. I didn't know you were that kind of person, you know. I presented a passbook I had taken out of the chest to my husband, who was folding his arms and looking down at Mia. You act all high and mighty, but you're not so great yourself. My husband turned pale at the page and shot him. He looked down and murmured excuses, but couldn't form a coherent sentence. Amelia, let me see too. It's a joint account between the couple, right? My sister frowned hard when she saw the page. Money has been withdrawn since 3 years ago. He must have been cheating since then. The amount keeps increasing. And in the past year, he's been withdrawing hundreds of thousands every month. Robert, were you supporting your elder son's life that much? Instead of my awkwardly silent husband, my daughter-in-law puffed out her chest proudly. John was always nagging me about saving money. He only gave me presents on our wedding anniversary and my birthday. Robert dips in brand name bags and accessories for every anniversary now, like the 100th day of our relationship, or the exact time and date I was born. That's to be expected. Couples these days celebrate their anniversaries diligently. I love you, Mia. I love you too, Robert. We have to cherish our faithful encounter. My anger exploded at the idiot couple, covering up to each other. Archie, idiots, after ruining my son's funeral, you have some nerve. My thunderous roar, unusual for my usually quiet self, left my husband and his mistress frozen in surprise. You dare to drain $72,000 from my carefully accumulated savings. You'll repay every last cent, including damages for emotional distress. $72,000? Did I really spend that much? Hey, come on. There's no way I can afford to pay that back. The cheerfulness from moments ago disappears as my husband's face contorted in distress. Shrugging off the arm of his mistress, he knelt in front of me, bleeding in a prayer-like posture. Hey, spare me from divorce, please. I can't live off just my pension if you leave me. That's not my problem. Even as I coldly rejected him, my husband made a pathetic face and clung to me. You can live off your father's inheritance, Maria. I only have my pension. Paying for compensation and savings, there's no way I can do it. If you can't pay it at all once, you can make installments. At that, the mistress, her eyes widening in disbelief, stormed over. Wait a minute, Baba. You said you were going to get a divorce next year, right? That was obviously a lie, Amelia. You see how it is. Please forgive me. You should be apologizing to Jean, not me. Not that I'll forgive you either way. I fired back sharply, causing my husband to slump, his voice on the brink of tears. The mistress glared at my traitorous husband with a face full of rage. All the while my sister looked on with a dumbfounded expression.
After the funeral was over, I moved to a hotel, taking only my valuables. As soon as I finished all the paperwork related to my eldest son, I picked up my cat and slammed the divorce papers down in front of my husband, then moved to a pet-friendly apartment. Through a lawyer, I arranged for the damages and repayment of savings to be made in installments. If my husband failed to pay, we agreed to garnish his pension. Now that my eldest son and I, the nuisances, were gone, I thought the husband and the daughter-in-law would be happy, but their relationship quickly turned sour. Daughter-in-law, who had been fired from the factory due to her abusive language and affair, wanted to find full-time work but kept failing interviews, so she started a part-time job, struggling with living expenses and the payment of emotional damages to me. The mistress worked hard while the lazy husband did neither housework nor work, instead demanding pocket money from her. When she refused, he brought up her abusive language, blaming her, and she completely lost her affection for him and proposed a breakup. The husband, dumped by the mistress, had the audacity to ask for a loan from relatives, but was refused and reluctantly started working. His work was going well, but the fact that he had an affair with his son's wife spread throughout the neighborhood. Being looked down upon, he couldn't bear it and sold his house. He was shunned by relatives and abandoned by friends, and he's supposedly spending a lonely retirement in an apartment, toiling day and night to repay the debt he owes me. Starting a new life at the age of 70, I'm now enjoying my time with my adorable cat. Until now, I have been prioritizing taking care of my husband and dealing with my daughter-in-law. Thus, I'm surprised at how free and relaxed life can be when you are on your own. I've made new friends through interactions with others in the same apartment complex, who also live with their dogs and cats. It's fun to visit each other's rooms and chat. The sorrow of losing my eldest son hasn't healed yet. Occasionally I meet with my sister and we share stories of remembrance and cry. There are nights when memories of my eldest son flood back after I get into bed, and tears dampen my cheeks. Nevertheless, those of us left behind have to live life to the fullest. I plan to enjoy the rest of my life, cherishing the time I spent with my cat, while keeping memories of my eldest son in a corner of my heart.